Okay, Gavin. So coming out of the gate with a hard-hitting question,
Yes.
did you realize when we were kids how much you were manifesting the life that you have now, speaking it into existence?
I do because I always had parents that made me believe in myself, I feel. So, they knew very early on I would do plays. I was a part of this thing called the Amadeus Boys Choir where we would do perform at the God, what is that place called? The Thousand Oaks Civic Arts Plaza. I would do classical music. I would want to do plays at home. And so they always knew that kind of stuff. So they would make sure that like I could get the extracurricular activities I want to do. And so it kind of just like they always made me believe I could, even though they weren't in the worlds I wanted to be in. They were pretty creative in their own worlds and really instilled that in me that I could be anything I want to be.
I love it. Also, shout
Yep.
out to your parents.
Yes.
And I remember growing up, you were saying, I'm always going to use my middle name because like Gavin Lee Jones, it's like Tommy
Yes.
Lee Jones.
It
And
flows a
so
little.
dude, it flows so great. Also, actually, now that we talk about it, Dayla, my wife's middle name is Lee.
Oh,
So
that's
like,
awesome.
yes, and it's
It
been a
lives
family.
on.
It does, yes, and it's been a family name on her side of the family, so it's really cool. But
Awesome.
so you had the support of your parents, but at any time did you figure? Because I remember you used to tell us like, "Hey, I'm going to work in entertainment someday. It's going to be Gavin Lee Jones." I get that that was part of your parents' support and them saying like, "Hey, you can do anything," which is like huge. Shout out to them and like anybody listening. If you're a parent, definitely start taking notes. But at what point did you ever figure out like, oh man, like I'm now sort of speaking this into existence. I'm on this path, and now I can start doing it myself. In addition to the support my parents are giving me.
Yeah, I feel like a lot of times, like in especially high school, I really felt like I had the chance. Like when I was younger, it used to be like a far off dream, but in high school, like we really had great teachers. There was this lady named Miss Capelli who had a husband in the entertainment business, and she's like, "Wait, I was her editor in chief of the school paper," and she said, "Like you can really write, like, and not just write like essays. You can actually write like where it's could be pop culture savvy, and it seems like you want to do that." So she asked me to write a pitch for a show, and I wrote it about the high school journalists at Pally in my editor-in-chief group. And so she had me pitch this producer. He said he really loved it, and said that I have a knack for it. And that's when I realized I didn't want to be a broadcast journalist when I go off to college at Syracuse. I really wanted to get into actually reality TV. I took detours from that and went into scripted and things like that at first, but then I realized like I really want to be with the people that are really living that life, not going to their trailer afterwards and like waiting in between scenes.
So since you give me this opportunity, what is your all-time favorite, or give me like your top three reality TV shows of all time?
I would definitely say Laguna Beach, because actually they were going through high school at the same time as us. Yes, their lifestyle was much more extravagant, but I felt like it really was honest. Like it wasn't like 25-year-olds playing high school students. I mean, we had a Freaky Friday being shot at our school, remember, freshman year, and it was like 25-year-old extras playing high school students, but it wasn't relatable versus, seeing these people go through that. So I'd say Laguna Beach. God, why am I blanking? What other shows do I love?
There's so
Um,
many.
I know there's so many,
I
but
also
ones
I also
I
put
would
you
say
on a
Laguna
touch.
Beach, The Hills. Oh, and The Hills. The Hills like taught us about doing internships. So it was actually a show that wasn't just like salacious. It was like someone who we watched her go to her first interview, her first internship. She like had to put together a makeshift outfit. Like it was real. Like they drove real cars. It wasn't like the current world where everything's glossy and perfect makeup and everything like that. It was really hustler. And then to see her go from internship to now being like a mogul, I really like those aspirational type shows.
I agree. Something that gives you a little bit extra. Like I'm a huge fan of Million Dollar Listing and the offshoots like Josh and Josh, because you get to see like, yes, they have the drama, they have the reality, but these are people who have built amazingly successful businesses, and you get to see the amazing homes and like learn a lot about interior design or real estate in general. So we do, Dayla and I gravitate towards those shows as well. Also, for people listening, Gavin and I went to a very famous high school called Palisades High School in
Yep.
Los Angeles. And it's funny you mentioned Freaky Friday. I was, did you ever, when they were filming it, during lunch, they had the extras kind of hanging out. And I remember thinking like, man, what if I just skip class and like hang out in the extras and I just come back into the quad? Did you ever
You
do
look
that?
too young compared to them.
We would
They were
stand out.
old. Yeah. They're
I
like our
remember
age now, right? I'm just
I
kidding.
ran by Lindsay Lohan. I was running late, and as you know, I was a couple blocks from the high school where I lived, and so I was running late to class, and I was just like booking it, and ran through a crowd of people, ran past three girls going up the stairs, and I got to the top of the stairs, and I was like, something's not clicking, like that didn't seem normal, and I looked down, and I was like, oh my god, I just ran through the shot, like I totally fucked up their shit,
Yeah, she had
and
the locker at the top of the stairs in the
yep,
quad. Yeah, that
yep,
was her like film one. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, that was
so
fun.
yeah, yeah.
Like life trying to imitate art, but yeah, I mean, yeah, I guess, yeah.
So going back around to you manifesting the life that you now live, and for those listening, I mentioned in the intro, but Gavin is an executive producer for a ton of hit reality TV shows. This is somebody who you may have seen because I know you do little guest spots here. You know, once in a blue moon, you'll be
Yeah,
on
sometimes
camera.
just the shows I've worked on have been on the air for many years, so like they'll bring me back for recaps and stuff. Yep.
Right. And for you listening, if you've watched some of these shows, you may have heard Gavin's voice, like when the reality star is talking to producer, or producer asks him the question, like that's what Gavin's doing. As you had this early inspiration or insight into becoming who you are now, did you ever get into goal setting, anything like that?
Yeah, I felt like originally like I was a part of this thing called the Amadeus Boys Choir where I sang and was on stage, so I learned how to do performance. Then in school I really learned how to master my writing. I became editor-in-chief of the school paper, you know, at Pally High with 3,000 students, so we really got to make a really interesting paper. And then from there I just had teachers say, like, you could really do this. Like, you say that you love reality TV, that you don't want to do scripted, there's a whole new world for that. And it was actually at the beginning stages of it. And I was one of the few. Most people in Los Angeles are like, reality TV's too low brow, I want to be scripted. But I actually love the authenticity of reality TV, because reality TV is super real. We're actually following their real lives, their real stakes. And I feel like that's more exciting to me, to follow that and to really tap into real life issues going on.
You mentioned, Gavin, a ton of different things that have helped you over the course of your life. Like obviously Miss Capelli, seeing what you could do in this realm and then recommending that you get in touch with so-and-so. You had the boys choir. I know we also had swimming, which we'll get into in a little bit, but have you ever had a moment or moments where you look back and you're like, oh, my life really makes sense. Like I can sort of see this artery or this vein or this thread from 20 years ago to now. Have you ever had those moments where in hindsight you're like, oh, this all makes sense? And then if you have had those moments, has it impacted how you look forward and how you plan for the future?
Yeah, I used to watch Total Request Live, MTV, and I'd be like, I want to be Carson Daly. I want to be Ryan Seacrest. Like, I want to be that person, whether it's behind the scenes or in front. Like, I really love how they helped put people on, how they helped people with their dreams. And so I would go to swim practice during the day at 2 p.m. Then I'd come home, I'd watch TRL, and then I'd have to do my homework, right? And it would just be this routine. And it'd be like, I found a way to link that, you know, I don't want to be a swimmer when I grow up. I love it right now. Like, was pretty successful in high school with it. I know I'm not going to go to the next level in it, but I can use the skills from this. Like, you need to show up at 5 a.m. in the morning to go to practice. You need to go to school. You need to do well, or you're not going to be able to graduate or do the sport that you want. You know, all that dedication I put into my current work. Like, you don't get to where you want to be without putting in the work and starting from the ground up. Like, if you try to shortcut your way to the front, it's a real steep drop down. So I really think that you have to work your way through. If you have a good dream, you have to see what's that bottom position to get in that door and kick that door open. From there, how do I move up and move up honestly? You don't want to be dishonest. You don't want to hurt someone that's above you or things like that. Like, you want to be the best person that they can hire, and then they want to help you. So it's like this business, just like this world, is very small. If you wrong people or hurt people, it comes back to you tenfold. Like, good people do win, and the bad people sometimes do win and go to the highest heights, and then they fall really hard. So ethics do matter.
For those listening, I hope you guys are taking notes because I want to tease out a bunch of great things that you're saying, Gavin. The first one is visualizing where you want to be. And I like how you said you had examples. And I think Los Angeles is such a great arena for entertainment, specifically because you see it all the time. Like, sidebar tangent, I'm so grateful that I grew up in LA because I've met other people in small town Texas, and like one of Dela's brothers will talk about kind of what's possible in life. And I will have this huge macro perspective, and they'll look at me like, oh my God, you're an alien. And my response is, well, I saw it. And to your point, Gavin, you see success, you see that person on the hill with the amazing cars and the big house. It's like, how'd they get there? You know, oh, they're a doctor, lawyer, Indian chief. They went to this school. They've known this person. They've been in this industry forever. And so you get that broader picture. And so for anybody listening, if you're working in pursuit of a goal, take some tips from Gavin as far as visualizing where you want to be, because he was visualizing every step from when we were kids, because Gavin and I have known each other since we were 12, and he's always been talking about working in entertainment, and now he is. The other one is teasing out what's worked in one discipline and applying it to others. And so if you're listening and you have a background in sports, think about what made you successful in that sport, and then tease that out and move the blueprint and apply it over into your career, into your relationships, if you're still in school, into your academic pursuits as well. Because Gavin's right, the discipline of having to jump into a cold pool at 5:30 and being able to do that over and over and over again, and learning from hitting a wall, like I'm sure you did as well when we were swimming. I remember I was like 12 and I didn't do well to meet, and my dad said, well, hey Sean, everybody else is doing 2 days. So I'm like, okay, cool, let me do that. And then I hit another wall and it was like 14, and my dad was like, hey, everybody else is kind of lifting weights, like let's do that. And I did that. And so also looking at problems inherently as solutions, because problems always inherently have a solution. I wanted to ask you, Gavin, coming back around on how you got your foot in the door. And I really appreciate you talking about, especially in entertainment, because I know entertainment can get a bad rap for treating people like shit. And I really love how you're saying like, hey, don't do that. I think it can be helpful for people listening, especially those who want to get into a certain industry and starting at the bottom. What was sort of your foot in the door story?
Right out of high school, even though I did want to be a TV producer, I didn't know if that was really going to be. Yes, I went to college to Syracuse. I was in the Newhouse School, which is an entertainment school. But during college, I would be an ocean lifeguard in Santa Monica in the summer. I'd do a job at Syracuse, things like that. But I knew actually from watching The Hills, you got to get an internship. You got to get into the door. So whether it was winter break, I would do the Academy Awards or something by just emailing the listserv at my university's alumni network. Checking Craigslist, checking, like back then, that's what we used to do. But like, I would just try to go to the college counselor's office, say, hey, I know that we have a big alumni network here. I want to get in the door, because no one in my family is in this. I do have a cousin that's a animal trainer in Hollywood who's amazing. But in terms of like producing things like that, like I don't have people in my life for that. So what I would do is winter break, I do internship, make sure I get credit for it. Summer, I would do 2 days of an internship, then I'd work 4 days. And then I would try to do other things as well. Like you always got to make time. You also have to have a side gig to be able to do the main gig. And also sometimes your side gig actually helps you open up the door as well. I actually remember I quit my comfy, this fast forwarding, but I quit my comfy like studio job in scripted because I realized I want to move into reality TV. I feel like I can make it in this. I actually was getting momentum with some of my treatments I was writing. And so I actually worked as a concierge for 2 days, and then worked as an ocean lifeguard for 2 days. And then I would make sure my pitch meetings were on like a Friday. And so like I started from scratch, where I was like, wait, I know this director of photography guy that I met one time. Let me just send him a treatment and see if he would do it for free with me. And he's like, wait, you got this cast ready? He would grab the camera, we would go, we shot it. I got this reel done, and MTV got interested, and it actually aired as a special for MTV's Made, and like over time. So what happened was and also when I was working as a concierge, I was writing this newsletter, right? And I didn't think that it was going to lead to anything. This was just my side gig as I'm trying to pitch shows and do all this. And someone read my newsletter and was like, wait, you are a great writer. Like, what do you do? I say, I want to do reality TV. And that's how I got one of my biggest reality TV foot in the door into the story department. So you never know when you're working that front desk somewhere, whether you're doing something, you need to always be on, and you need to always be ready, because that door could knock anytime.
What helps you do that? What helps you stay on and like be ready? Do you have like a morning routine, things that kind of work for you?
For a morning routine, I definitely like to go hiking in the morning and do something in nature. I definitely feel like that helps get the endorphins up. You need to have endorphins to do that. But also, I just feel like I'm naturally that type of person. I'm curious to help other people. I'm curious to want to do things. And I actually feel like just my integrity and my spirit allows people to see, like, wait, he's a hard worker. Like, I want to do the right thing right when no one's watching anyway. So like, before they even know who I am, I'm gonna make sure that I'm doing my best. So I feel like people should want to do a good job, and then it does come back tenfold.
Can you give me that schedule that you had again? You said you did like 2 days lifeguarding, you had a couple days concierge, and then you're also pitching things. What did
Yeah,
that like
on
week
like a
look like?
Thursday, Friday. And so like I would actually on my lunch break sometimes have to take meetings like with a major studio, and then I'd be giving boxes or scheduling like activities and things like that. So like, the hustle was written. And this is coming from a guy who actually did get a full-time job at Warner Brothers doing like a scripted show, like working as an office PA and things like that. And I did quit that because my pitching actually got momentum. So I ended up optioning 3 different shows, and I just was like, wait, I believe that this could happen for me. And even though only one of them made it to air, that opportunity led to something else. I always think it's like that barrel mentality where one arm links to the next, no matter what. Like it's a domino effect. If you just keep putting yourself out for opportunity, then it will come.
I think that's a major key too that I just want to highlight is you mentioned, Gavin, that you did 3 pitches and 1 made it, but you're like, I wouldn't have gotten that 1 and I wouldn't have gotten things past that 1 if I hadn't done the 3. And I think for people listening, sometimes we try one thing once and it may not work, but it's our passion. And then we're going, okay, we throw up our hands and it's not going to work. And we stop doing it versus like, okay, what can I learn from this? I'm really passionate about this industry or what I want to do. How can I do another one? How can I get back in there? How can I get more reps? And so I really appreciate how you teased out you had projects that failed, quote unquote, but you wouldn't have been able to be successful had you not done those. I also, in my mind now, see you in a tower in Santa Monica being like, oh, can you hold on one sec? I need to go save somebody and then come back.
Well, actually, those were the days that I didn't use my phone because I actually was really about that life, like saving people's lives. So those would be the days that I would actually have to leave it at home, and I'd say, oh, I'm somewhere else, or, I don't believe in it's fake it till you make it. It's just like you gotta make it till you make it, I guess. I don't know. Like it's kind of like
how I personify that is acting as if.
Yeah,
and
exactly.
I think it's kind of visualizing. I talk about this a lot. Like I have a journaling prompt that I give to clients, anybody else who will listen, which is called a peak you journaling prompt. So like a peak Gavin journaling prompt. You were already doing it unbeknownst to you. You're like, I want to be this reality TV executive. So what does that guy do? How does that guy act every day? What do they say? How are they intentional? And then backing into that and being like, oh, okay, I'm 5 years away from that. I'm 10 years away from that. What can I start doing now because really the only difference between you 15 years ago and you now is you're doing all the things now that you weren't doing 15 years ago. So it's like, Let me just start doing those things now. And can that collapse time and speed me up a little bit quicker? I also know you take lifeguarding seriously. Like this is fun for me. Oh, so yeah, great story. Just real quick, funny. Have a friend here in Austin and he was like making jokes about somebody, but he's a really funny guy and they were very detailed and insightful jokes. And he ran through like sort of 10 different, I'm going to diss this person, but it's going to be really creative. And so we're all going to laugh. Right. And the very last one, he's like, this is the best one I got. And he goes in the thing and the whole punchline at the end, he goes, it's like he's a career lifeguard. And he just starts cracking up and I'm staring at him like blank on my face. And he was like, why aren't you laughing? And I was like, I think the disconnect is like, I grew up in Los Angeles, like being a lifeguard is a very like respectable career and like people are able to support their families. And like, I grew up with them. He was like, oh yeah, I'm born and raised in Ohio. So he was like, my idea of a lifeguard is like a pool lifeguard, not an ocean lifeguard, which Gavin was. And
saving
I was
people every day. Yep. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And people don't realize how challenging that is to do. And so I was mildly joking about you taking calls in the tower, but I know you're serious.
No. I get what you're. But the funny thing is, I actually even learned a lot of TV producing skills from being an ocean lifeguard because a million times, hey, get off the rocks. Get off the rocks. Please get off the rocks. Move this way. And then they can't. Like reality TV is you're following the reel. So it's kind of like you can try to plan it ahead and everything, but they always find their way to be human nature, I guess.
What were you, Tower 15 or what tower were you?
I was Santa Monica in Venice Beach.
Okay.
Sometimes I would do Will Rogers and stuff like that, but for the most part, I was like the avenues in Venice Beach, which are crazy, and then Santa Monica and stuff like that. So
Dude, it's a ton of fun. I want to come back around to the cold calls, cold emails, because you said that you reached out to some producers. Was that like, because a lot of people, the reason why I asked this next question, Gavin, is so many people have a hard time with that. Like I've shared some success stories with, so I wrote a book. I'm sure you've seen me post about it and whatnot. And I've been really successful at just poking friends. And I either send them a DM or I send them a text. And I was on a friend of mine, Rachel Shear's show, and my podcast producer, Kyle, messaged me after that. He was like, bro, like, how'd you do that? That was such a big podcast. Like, great job. And I was like, I honestly just shot her a message and was like, hey, like, can I come on and promote my book? And she was like, yeah, like, you've been great. We've followed each other forever. Like, I'd love to. And so I'm always encouraging people to basically shoot their shot. Where did that come from for you? Was that just natural? Were you just hustling, or was somebody like, hey, nudge, nudge, go do this?
I feel a lot of just educational background. Like in college, they tell you to seek out the source, seek out the don't just talk about something unless you have the bibliography or you know who the expert is. I used to do a lot of independent studies in college where I'd be super interested in something, and then I would go research it. And I also feel that so in the entertainment business they say that education doesn't really matter. I totally disagree, because I feel with a college education, yes, you don't need it to get your foot in the door, but to make great content, you need to know that every department of society, whether it's history class, science, math, they all intertwine together. And if you don't know the environment of which you're in, you're never going to tell the greatest story. And then what was the question though? I just want to make sure I'm going back to it.
For sure. The impetus to cold call, to cold
A cold call,
email.
yes, that's where it was. So when it comes to cold calls, because I had so many interests growing up, like from environment, politics, history, like even on the last show I had to do, I had to find an expert for every day that would help people in love, right? Because of my experience of doing many extracurriculars or being interested in different things, I'd be like, wait, no one's ever done a love expert that's like this. Let me call them up. Let me get an email. And you think, like back in the day, there used to be ivory towers. You can't get into the gates of the studio or anything. There's LinkedIn, there's Facebook. I mean, the first show I ever came up with, I read the LA Times about these girls in this unique world, saw their name, Facebooked them, sent them a message, and was like, hey, I love your guys' story. I want to do a show. I didn't have any receipts. I didn't have any titles. I just said, hey, I love this and I want to make this happen. And you just have to believe in yourself. And you have to also know that they need you just as much as you need them. That if you believe in yourself and you know that you are an asset, they're going to want to know you by you writing out to them. And, many times no one's ever going to write. Sometimes people even have an ego where they're like, why would they even write me? People like me are not like that. Some of people have actually cold wrote me on LinkedIn, and that girl ended up booking a whole Dubai trip for us because she was like, I want to get into the entertainment business. I hired her 3 years later. She's the one booking our whole Dubai trip for a show. So opportunity knocks when you knock or actually kick the door down.
Dude, dropping so much knowledge, Gavin. I really appreciate it. For people taking notes, I really love how you said they need you as much as you need them, and
Yep.
remembering that in those types of interactions. So there's also a great book. Have you heard of the book, The Third Door by Alex Benayan?
I know that you've posted about it before. But tell me about it.
Yeah, so he grew up in Los Angeles as well, and he kind of hacked his way onto The Price is Right, ended up winning some stuff, and saw like, oh, there's always a third door, quote unquote, into something. And so he talks about there's the front door, there's the back door, and then there's also like a window, proverbially, or an analogy of that's finding your way in. And so I really love how you're talking about finding that third door, kicking it down sometimes you have to, and then also remembering that they need you as much as you need them. Where did this hustle come from, Gavin? I mean, I know you and I both grew up in LA. Like, I'd like to think it's consistent, maybe symptomatic for all of us growing up in that environment. But was this something that you feel like came naturally, or did you have a mentor that was like, hey, this is how you do it?
Besides Miss Capelli, who I mentioned stuff, I actually believe my mom was a big part of that, just because a lot of times people are like, wait, you're not from LA. You got like this Minnesota accent and you're like nice and you're not like, so she came from Minnesota, like from a blue collar worker family. And she always instilled that in us. She had to work from 4 a.m. I'd see her get in her pantsuit, go off to work, come back, still be a full-time mom. And I just learned that like life does not come, like money doesn't grow on trees. You have to work for it. And just seeing her work so hard at that. Also, my dad was a shower door salesman and he designed shower doors for people like Aaron Spelling and stuff. So even though he wasn't in an entertainment business, on summer when we didn't have a babysitter because we couldn't afford a babysitter, I would go in the car with my dad to all these beautiful Beverly Hills houses. I'm like, wait, how do they live like that? And also, they normally, the people that are super successful are actually the most nice. The wannabes are the meanest. So Aaron Spelling was so nice to my dad. And even though we were nowhere near that type of lifestyle, I always knew like, wait, I feel like if I work hard enough, I could possibly do that. And I definitely have not become Aaron Spelling, but I have helped to show me make it to 10 years in prime time like he did. So obviously not 90210 level, but
Gavin, you're doing it. You're doing it. From somebody who's had perspective on your life, like, I think Aaron Spelling is very hard to get to as the benchmark, but
Yes.
I think you, and I say this, for real, other people are looking at you as, oh, Gavin's the benchmark. What you've been able to do behind the scenes, I think it's super cool.
Well, thank you. I'm only as good as my mentors who have given me a shot and stuff. So, and that's another thing is that I've had so many people who like you can't make it alone. You have to, that's why it's also important to work hard for others because then they also want to help you. And knowing who those people are that are your mentors to really get you there.
I also like how you talked about that archetype, which seems to be consistent amongst everybody of having a parent or a family member or a mentor figure that they see go through whatever it is they're going through, but like basically getting up and going to work. For instance, did you know Aaron Ware? He's from Palisades, but he went to private schools.
I don't know why I must have. I mean,
Name
like
sounds familiar.
you and me spent like almost every from 12 years old to like 50. So I must have known like him somehow.
No, I know. He's our age, and then he had an older brother. He has an older brother, Matt, who was very successful in football, went to UCLA, played in a couple Super Bowls.
Oh
He's been
yeah,
on the
I've heard of
show.
him. Yes.
Yeah, and he talked about when we had a similar conversation. He said there was a time when he was a little kid and he got up in the middle of the night to go to the bathroom, and he went in the bathroom and his dad was in there with flashcards because he was studying for the California bar.
Yeah.
And he was like, it was like, 3 a.m. or whatever. But Matt, being a kid, got to see like, oh my God, like my father is working really, really hard. And so he said that's always stuck with him of like, okay, how can I get up and go to work or go beyond sort of my dreams? Same thing like with my dad. Like he used to tell stories of my grandfather on the farm having an ankle that he had fucked up and it looked super black, and he's just tightening the boots because it's like, hey, I got to go out and make it work. Like I have those stories of seeing my dad of going to sleep literally in the Palisades and my mom being like, hey, your dad's gonna be home at some point, and then I wake up and he's not there, and my mom's like, yeah, he came home, like he gave you a kiss, and then he like went to sleep, and then he had to get out and go catch another
Get to work.
flight.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And so it's really, I think, finding that consistency that's been consistent in so many that I've had on the show. And if you're listening, if you don't have that in your life, you don't have a family member where you're thinking to yourself, Sean, like, I don't have that archetypical story in my life. Look for mentors, look for coaches, look for people who can help you get there and provide that example. I think that's so cool. Also just love your
peers, I feel, because we talked about this before it started, but like when I first moved to our town, I was 12 years old. I actually was really overweight. It was a bad time. My parents just got divorced, and a lot of the kids on our team were not accepting of me. They were like, who's this kid? Like made fun of me, everything. You were so nice. And you made me want to be there, and you made me want to show up. And then you helped even build me to be one of your teammates of the 6 that won the Los Angeles City Championship because of your like kindness and teamwork and leadership. Being a leader is making everyone in that room feel important, not just the best, and a lot of people do forget that. So
100%. I appreciate the shout out too. And that's a nice segue into swimming. Do you remember a moment? Because you say I appreciate the shout out and we're going somewhere with this. Do you remember when I think I pushed you up on a locker and I was like, bro, you got to get it together. I think it was like Duckett told me, he was the swim coach. He was like, Gavin's sort of like teetering on the edge of eligibility. You and I we're all freshmen. And I think it was one of those where I wasn't like being that physical, but I just was like, hey man, like we really need you, and like let us know how we can support you. It wasn't like you're a dumbass, but it was like, hey, Duckett told me, the coach told me you're kind of on the line. If we have any shot of winning this, we're going to need you. And then after that, you got the grades back, like we swam, everything happened. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, so freshman year, even in middle school, after my parents' divorce and everything like that, I really loved swimming, and my goal was to lose weight, right? So that was my only goal. And then by the time I reached high school, I kind of shed it. I was getting attention that I didn't have before, so I was like losing my focus, right? And so yeah, no, ninth grade, I felt like it was not the best, but also I actually feel like because I was in not the classes with the what do you call it, like the AP kids, like I actually was taking classes lower to be on swim team. By the time in sophomore year where I was taking the AP classes, believed in myself that I am of the advanced placement level, being around people that were driven and focused, and even on our team pushed me to want it. And then from 10th grade junior year, like that's how I got into Syracuse was that. And I mean, the end of senior year, I also had you just got to accept in life, you go through some ups and downs, and yes, it's great to have people that push you to be better and everything. And then also sometimes accept that you do go through the ups and downs. Like I even know that in reality TV, like one of the reasons why the show lasts so long is it isn't a perfect story. You can have setbacks. You can have a horrific thing happen to you, or you can go through a terrible breakup and you find your way through it. Like real life is stranger than fiction, you know? But definitely, I really appreciate that you really did. Yes, I do remember that in ninth grade, and it pushed us because I almost wasn't able to do city championships. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's something I think about too when you were saying that it's okay to have those ups and downs. And I think that's really important for people to hear who are listening. I think it's also important for anybody who's in sort of our ADHD, like immediate gratification society, of being okay with those ups and downs. Like I was heard some like monk or spiritual sort of teacher, and they asked them, you know, why is there bad in the world, or like why do we have negative moments? And he said it makes things interesting, just like the play of life. If we are always succeeding, if it's always positive, it does get kind of boring. And like you said, if a reality show is always positive, no one's going to watch it. It's going to be a season and it's going to be done. But if there's drama, if there's conflict, if there's tension, people are going to watch from episode to episode. People are going to watch from season to season. And you've seen
Because
that
it's
with
real life too. It's real life. You have setbacks sometimes. You sometimes have to live in your failure. You sometimes have to I even remember, so I did great. I had like great grades, all that stuff. By senior year, I was burnt out. Like, you know how it is swimming. It's like, I didn't want to do it anymore. I was like not doing I got into school. I was like, wait, why do I have to do this? And I let the bad mindset, bad, environment around me. And then, but I was actually not even able to swim when we won our fourth city championship. And I actually won the Cal J. Hofdieser Award that year, even after being ineligible, because as the team captain, I showed up to support the other swimmers and was like cheering them on, and I lived in that failure because you have to accept failure and you have to accept your wrongs before you can go to that next level and move forward.
Dude, that's such a huge quote. And then also shout out to you for not being able to swim in the meet, but still being a captain, still showing up, because how many people would say, you know what, screw this, I'm not going to go, I don't need to be there. But you still took time out of your week and your weekend and went, and was not able to swim, but was still cheering people on. And I think that's something that people miss sometimes, especially with just seeing success. Like with the book that I wrote, there were so many people when I first said, like, I'm writing a book, I had so many people either say, oh, that's cool, ... I've written a book, or, oh, that's cool, I'm doing that as well, or da, da, da. And I share the story, but I've shared the story in the past, what I mean, but I could get in my feelings, right? And be like, oh man, like I shouldn't do this. So many other people have done it. Like, who am I,
Oh,
right? Or yeah, I can look at it as like, oh, wow, to your point, like, could these people who have written a book help me out? Like, is there something that I can tease out? And I've asked a few of them, like, what's one thing that you would say from that process? And then also just embracing that energy and being like, hey, if I can be around these people who are still doing it at a high clip, like, how can I learn from them? And how can I sort of use that energy in my own life?
Yep, definitely. And to be honest, even in my career with reality TV, the only stars that ever last the longest are the ones that don't have that wall up, that they own, like, this is who I am, this is what I've gone through, this is how I'm going to be better. Like, you have to own your flaws. You have to have good sportsmanship. Sometimes you're going to win, sometimes you're going to lose. You don't need to lie and say that it's not the correct results. Like, you need to, like, know you gotta take accountability.
So coming back around to swimming. So for those listening, Gavin and I had a very special moment in winning the Los Angeles City Championship for our high school, Palisades High School. And the school had a history of being really good in swimming. What was funny is when you and I were freshmen, the ladies had a string of championships and they had been consistent, but the guys hadn't won in like 12 or 15 years.
Since the Baywatch producers, they were the last ones to win. Yeah.
Would they went
Yeah,
on to
like,
produce?
well, the Greg, I don't know if they were the last, but they were like Paul, the New Me guy, knew me, and because I actually talked to him when I worked with him,
Oh man,
like at the
that's so
beach,
great.
and Greg Bonin and stuff like that. Yeah.
That's super cool. So when Gavin, myself, and there were 6 of us who could actually score points in the finals of the Los Angeles City Championship. And so that was a big thing when I was talking about having that conversation with Gavin about like, hey, we really need you, bro, because we really did. And so just painting the picture, we go into this last relay,
Oh
and
God, I
it's
remember this.
and it's 4 of us. It's me, Gavin, a good friend of ours, David Nomberg, and Greg Walther. And me, Gavin, David were all freshmen. Greg was a junior. And we had to win the relay to win the whole thing, I think by like a couple points, which if anyone listening knows swimming, to win by a couple points, it's not like other sports. That doesn't happen very often. And so Adam Blackus, who was our coach, one of the coaches, I thought it was a genius move because he put me first. And he said, Sean usually swims the anchor, but he was like, I think everybody else is going to do better swimming with a lead. And so I'm going to put Sean first, and then I'm going to put Nomberg last. And he typically went first. And it was like, I'm just going to trust that David's going to, bust one out and swim outside of his brain. And it was really like, Greg and Gavin, we just need y'all to like show up, do your thing, and we're going to be great. So we're sitting in this sort of like mock ready room on the bleachers, and then we go up behind the blocks. And what happens to you, Gavin?
I don't remember. All I remember is I think I had a race right before and I threw up or something, right? Was that what it was? Yeah. So what happened is once you get to the final championship, there's no other. So like other swim meets, you have to go through all the different age groups and stuff. But once you get to the championships, it's only the final people left. So you have a race that's a 200 backstroke or whatever I was doing. You have to go right into that relay. So I had just given it my all. I did really well or something. And then all of a sudden I'm getting picked. Sean picks me up out of the water to go into the next relay, and I throw up. And then I'm like, and then I think we said like, let's go or something. Right. And it was like left there on the Coliseum, Los Angeles Coliseum's concrete.
Yes. Yeah. So we were at the USC swimming pool in LA. And I just thought it was like, for me, I remember just it kind of feeling like pandemonium because I was like, okay, I need to go get Gavin, like make sure the four of us are there. And then if I remember it, we were like all at the blocks, and we were like going to the blocks, and like I'm getting ready to lead off, and I turn around and you're like, and you were being very, very conscientious because I think you were throwing up right into a gutter. Like we're like
Yes,
one of the
I was, yes. But don't you remember? I used to throw up a lot because I'd push myself to the limit. Yeah. It's like I don't know what it was. I have like a throw up issue, but yeah.
Hey, no, it happens to a bunch of us. I mean, with like I don't actively sort of preach it, but with what Dayla and I do with lifting, like it's so funny, Gavin. Once I really got into lifting, it was like I was tapping back into that swimming. Like we had test sets where it's like 10 100s all out or something, and the lactic acid and how you feel. And it wasn't until I took that and applied it to lifting that I started to see massive gains, because I was like, oh shit, like this is kind of the same as swimming. But
Exactly.
I just wanted to point out how you we all did sort of, we like felt the fear and did it anyway.
Yeah.
And that's sort of the point. And it's just so fun for me. And
They
then
said we
winning
couldn't
it.
do it. We were too young. They said, "Oh, these freshmen," and we were not scheduled to win. We were not like supposed to, like the later years. People were like, "Oh, they got it in the bag or whatever." But that year, they didn't think we were going to win. So
Yeah, we were brand new. No one knew us because Greg and Adam Bateman were the only like upperclassmen. I think everybody else were freshmen. And then I remember that second year, because now people knew us, we went into the districts or whatever that meet was at Venice High School, and the San Pedro team had all fudged time so they could be in the middle and move us to the sides. And I was like,
they
oh,
loved that. Yeah.
yeah. So then we sort of had a target on our back, but that first year was a ton of fun. Is that your favorite swimming memory all time?
Yes, definitely. Because the later years weren't fun to me, to be honest. It started to gradually go to where I wasn't happy in it anymore. But that year I was like determined to win. Like I loved it. And it was great. Yeah. Like the later years I focused more on my school and like getting into college and things like that. And then but I definitely used that to propel myself. Like I graduated in 3 years from Syracuse just from that, like and that's why I said it's a gift and a curse with swimming, because they push you to do everything to the extreme. So like even what you remember with like food, right? Like you'd be like, wait, I don't want to just leave anything here. I need to eat all of it. Like, because that's how you're trained. Like, no, you don't get out of that pool until you're like dead or like, and so it's a gift and a curse. Yep.
I was also going to shout you out for getting out of Syracuse in 3 years.
Oh, oh
But
my
yeah,
God.
man,
Well, it was
that's
too cold. It was too cold. I love the school, but it was too cold.
this is true. I know. If you notice, I went to grad school at University of Oregon, and that was the coldest, quote unquote, I'd ever been. Like I jokingly said that I stayed below the Mason-Dixon line, like with
Yeah.
LA, Austin, Georgia, because I just didn't want to deal with the cold. But that was also my favorite swimming memory. Like even swimming in college, like having those successes, I look back and I'm like, that freshman year, winning the championship with you guys, excuse me, when people didn't think we were going to do it. And it was such a cool moment for you, me, David, Greg, people who had swam together since we were little kids, and to achieve that. And so anybody listening, if you're in
All
the
really
LA area,
supported each other. Like we all, like how you said, like if people were going all, like I just felt like it was a team. Later on, it just felt like it was like a well-oiled machine, like Rocky Four. It's like, it's like competition being pitted against each other. I felt like we were a team in an individual sport. And I think that that's super important because that's why we all still get along versus some people that don't, so yeah.
Dude, you're so right. Now that you talk about it too, because we did all care so much about each other and we cared
Yeah.
so much about the goal. And yeah, I mean, I don't remember competing, quote unquote, with any of y'all. It was just like and I think this is also good for anybody who works in a company or a team. It's how can I do my role? Like, how can I fulfill my role? And then how can I support everybody else doing theirs? And then we get to come together for this really cool moment with a relay at the end of it and like really hype everybody up. Like, I know when I talked to Nomberg about it, he always remembers he like credits Greg because Greg was like trying to hype him up so much. David said it was getting annoying. And the only thing he could think about was like, Greg, just shut the fuck up. Like, I'm trying to swim. And he dropped like 2 or 3 seconds in his time for the 100, and he was like, I'm usually in my head, but I had this person sort of distracting me, but it was because he cared.
Yep. No, definitely. Yeah, no, and I also feel like swimming is such a great sport where if you look left or right at your competition, you're going to slow down. Like, the best thing in life is you should admire people, like see how they've done, learn from them, support them, and then just be the best you can be. Like that, it took me a long time to learn that too, that to be the best you can be, because if you keep trying to be something, you know what I mean? Like, and I think that that's important. You taught that, all that stuff. So definitely.
I vibe very, very hard with that. So to kind of put a period exclamation point on the swimming stuff, if you're in the LA area, you go by Palisades High School. The beautiful new pool, the 50-meter pool they have, did not exist.
Go up to Temescal. I don't go to that pool.
But I'd like to think that you, me, a few others really set the standard for the success the swim team continues to see. Like, it's so cool that like I don't think any of our names are on the record books on that board anymore at the pool because so many have come after us and done amazing things.
Which is awesome. Like every generation should try to take that to the next level. So that's awesome.
Well, speaking of next levels,
I feel your records are still there, though. They have to be. Like, I know mine are. I stopped after high school, but like I know you were actually a real college swimmer. So,
oh man, the game changes too. I think, and you dig this as well. And Nomberg, he started reading my book, and I have the beginning. I talk about my swimming career because there's so much, like you've been saying this entire episode, Gavin, that we can tease out of our swimming careers to be successful in life. And David was shocked because when I moved here my junior year, some of my credits weren't transferred from LA. And so I had to stay later at school. And so my club swim team, they had a 3:30 swim time, and they had a 5:30 swim time. And I couldn't make it 3:30. So I'd always hit 5:30. Yeah. There were 2 other guys. And so there were only 3 guys who would swim that practice. And they would kick my ass every single day. And one, like I mentioned before we hit record, was that he still is in the national age group record books, Maverick Smalley. The other guy, Michael Klee, he finished 8th, just knocking on the door in some relays in like 2 Olympics. And I just got tired of them kicking my butt every single day. And so in the book, I talk about it. I remember it distinctly. There was one day where I was like, I don't care if I have to float after practice. I don't care if I get yelled at for not swimming the rest of the day. Like, I'm going to beat these mofos in this one thing, this one time. And that made me better. And that allowed me to get more interest. Cause like when I was going into my junior year, I think it was like UC Santa Barbara, like no shade to UCSB, like amazing, beautiful school. Right. But that was sort of like the recruiting. It was like, oh, if you want to swim in college, like you can go there. And I was like, well, I kind of want to get into a bigger pool and pun intended. And then I get here and really work at it. And then now I have like Georgia, Kentucky, Texas A&M, West Virginia.
That's like one of the biggest swim schools of the country. Yes, exactly.
Yeah. And also I had the option when I was being recruited of certain schools being like, you're going to be the guy. And like, you're going to swim everything and it's going to rally around you. And Georgia was like, we want you here, but like, you're still going to have to get faster. And just knowing the experience I had, not only with you, but then moving to Texas, I was like, well, if I go to the school where I'm the guy, I'm not really going to be like, I'm not going to get faster. Yeah. But if I go to this one where I'm kind of getting my butt kicked, like how fast can I get?
Yep. No, definitely. And what I like about both of us is that we knew, like, when swimming ended, we could still move forward with that skill set and not look bad at it. Many times people are like, I'm exhausted from it. Like, I always look at it as like, I may never see a pool again. I feel like I will, but it's definitely helped me in many careers, from ocean lifeguarding, my dedication to my work, teamwork, camaraderie. So I think it's super, we've been able to chameleon our way through with that work ethic that I don't think any other sport really has, because that's a do or die sport, like cold weather, early mornings. Yeah.
So as we segue into the next phase of life, and
Yes.
as I sort of get to the end of the episode, what goals do you have for yourself in the future? And I know, and I prefaced it with the intro, you can't say specifically the shows that you're working on, but where do you sort of see yourself? Show agnostic, like what's your goal setting? Like where do you see yourself in the next 10, 15 years?
Well, what's kind of exciting is like when I was in high school and stuff, I always said I want to be a Baywatch lifeguard and I want to be an executive producer of a show someday. I had a teacher say like, well, you got to choose one, right? I didn't choose one. I did different ones, you know, in different times of your life. Like when we're younger, you think you don't have time. Like I got to just do it all right now. And to be honest, because of that drive, I achieved it all very quickly. So now what's exciting is like I feel like my next goals is just to become better at what I do, but also branch out, do some more of my own projects. My mentor actually, who owns our company, is like really inspiring and tells me to like pitch things and go after higher things. But also, I love that I've kept something 10 years on top. Number one, I believe that success, it's easy to achieve once, right? It's easy to win. To keep it is hard. And so I feel like my goal setting is just take one day at a time, continue to stay on the right path, continue to be a good person, continue to treat my team well, people I work for well, and I feel like everything comes with that. I believe integrity and character is the root of everything in you to be able to grow any other leaves. So
I'm going to co-sign on that one and
yeah.
reinforce what Gavin's saying. So if you're listening, hope you were taking notes on this one. I know, Gavin, we're very Instagram focused here at Shots to the Dome podcast, and
Yes.
your Instagram, you have to get through the filter. You have to be like the cool person to see your
Oh yeah,
Instagram. So
I keep it private. So my Instagram is my fun, like the people who know me, like my politics, my fun, like my real personality. Everything else is like I mean, I'm always an open book, but yes, that's like my fun page.
So with the open bookness, what I typically do with guests that I have on the show is like, how can people connect with you? How can they learn more from you? And people typically give their Instagram because that's the realm in which I work. But would you be open to like, what would be for you? Like LinkedIn, Facebook? Like how could people, if they were like, oh my God, Gavin, I love this episode. How can they connect with you? How can they kick down your door? Would that be like Facebook, LinkedIn?
Yeah, I would say I'm Gavin Lee Jones on LinkedIn. I'm Gavin Lee J on Instagram. Yeah, definitely. Just and also like one thing is I always feel like know what you want like a little bit. Like so know the department or world you want to be in and then focus on that and know that it's never going to be what you dream it to be. Like I started off where I wanted to make the next 90210, right? The world changes, right? So different types of shows become different things. You have to know that you're going to get a little bit of your dream, but it might become bigger than what you wanted. So yeah, so that's what I'd probably say. So
I love it.
knock down your door, go for it.
Awesome. I will have those links in the show notes. So if you're listening, if you want to connect with Gavin, learn from him, et cetera, I'll have the Facebook and LinkedIn. But other than that, man, I really appreciate it.
I feel people who follow your podcast though will be fun. So they can follow my Instagram.
Okay, so I'll put the Instagram down too.
Yes, yeah, they can. Yes, they can. They can reach out to me because I feel like they'll be a good vibe check.
Right. Yes, exactly. I feel like they'll have the cosign, they'll have that check mark next to them. But this is the real deal. Like if you're listening, Gavin doesn't give out his Instagram very often.
I don't.
Like even
I'm Sean McDevitt.
Yeah, you're gonna have to say like I heard you on Shots to the Dome with Sean. I vibe with you. I want to check you out because I'll have to like if you remember some friends that you didn't know, like people I've met, and I'm like, hey, I think you'll vibe with my old friend Gavin, and then I'll say like he's going to be very judicious about if he lets you in, and so then I'll DM you and I'll be like, hey, this person's cool, like it's okay.
And what's funny is that most of my friends, you know how normally a nickname would be like Gav or something, my real friends actually call me Gavin Lee Jones like as a joke, or Gavin Leroy. You guys used to call me that, so it's funny. Yeah.
I love it. Well, hey man, I really appreciate you being on the show.
Same to you. Thank you so much, Sean. And it's like time has not passed, so it's wonderful.
Yeah, I know. This is great. Well, we're still going to be here after I stop recording, but thank you again, my friend. And thank you guys for listening. I appreciate y'all.
Thank you so much.